Well, as we reported here last night, the Corpus Christi City Council has formally approved a $1.1 billion budget for the upcoming fiscal year. It begins October 1st. And part of that budget includes funds to train more cadets to become city firefighters. Tonight, our Michael Gibson has a look at what that is going to mean for the fire department.
Fire department officials say they welcome the additional manpower because this year alone, they're estimating they're going to spend $2.9 million in overtime cost to cover the shortage in the workforce. James Meyer and Aaron Longoria are two of the 34 cadets in the Fire Academy.
I'm just going through all the equipment, making sure everything's out so I know where everything's at.
Who hope to graduate in the spring. Both say they made the right decision on choosing the career path.
When you see your first fire truck, you know, it kind of puts that pride in you, like, that's where I want to be. That seems really cool.
Doing something to help other people is always something that I've wanted to do.
Deputy Fire Chief Richie Quintero told us that with City Council approving that $1.1 billion budget, his department will be able to add 16 firefighters to a brand new academy which starts up in January. That means that 50 men and women will be part of that training class.
At the moment, our target is to reach our authorized complement of 414 firefighters in the department. Once we reach that, we will reassess as to what our needs moving further, any additional assets, any additional stations, any additional equipment, and then we'll make those decisions based on our needs at that point.
Quintero adds that the additional manpower will help cut down on the overtime being handed out because of the shortage of firefighters.
The salary based on a firefighter one or a newly hired firefighter would be significantly less than that. So having someone on board on regular time versus overtime, for the most part, would probably be a little less expensive.
We press this button right here and it lowers the stretcher, raises it up for us.
While cadets Meyer and Longoria are still going through their academy training, that January class of 50 is already being pre-tested so that they'll be ready to hit the ground running at the first of the new year. Michael Gibson, 3 News.